Why would a cowboy say he needed a wife instead of a servant to a stranger who could barely stand on her feet? Jessie Keller walked toward the Diamond Y Ranch with dust clinging to her clothes and fear tightening her chest. She had been running for 3 long weeks, leaving St. Louis behind with nothing except a small bag and a heart full of worry. Her boots were worn thin, her shawl torn, and hunger had weakened her body. The Wyoming air was cold, but sweat still touched her forehead from exhaustion and hope mixed with fear. When Jessie reached the ranch gate, she paused. The land looked peaceful and strong. A 2-story house stood proudly with a barn beside it, fences stretching toward open hills, and cattle scattered across the fields. She prayed this place would give her the small chance she needed. She pushed the gate open and walked down the dirt path, her heart pounding with every step. Before she reached the porch, a deep voice called out, "Can I help you, ma'am?" Jessie turned and saw a tall cowboy walking toward her from the barn. He wiped his hands on a rag tucked into his belt. He wore a faded blue shirt with sleeves rolled up, showing strong arms darkened by the sun. His hair rested under a worn hat and a trimmed beard framed his jaw. His blue eyes watched her with caution and curiosity. She swallowed hard. I'm looking for work, sir." The cowboy walked closer, his boots steady on the ground. Up close, he looked younger than she first thought, around 30, with tired lines near his eyes from long days under the sun. "I'm Brody Yates," he said. "Jessie Keller," she replied, holding her bag tighter. "I can cook, clean, mend clothes. I will work hard. I don't need much pay, just a place to stay and some meals." Her voice shook, and she hated how weak it sounded. Brody studied her carefully. He noticed her thin frame, the worn dress that had once been fine, and her soft accent that hinted she was not the daughter of a farmer or ranch family. She was hiding something, and he could tell. "I don't need a servant, Miss Keller," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "I need a wife." Jessie froze. Her breath caught in her throat. Heat rushed to her cheeks as she stepped back. "Sir, I don't understand." Brody let out a small breath and shook his head. "That came out wrong. I'm not asking you to marry me. What I meant is that I need a partner. Someone who builds a home with me, not someone who only serves. My father passed last year, and I've been running this ranch alone. I don't need someone to wait on me. I need someone to share the load." His meaning should have comforted her, but her heart sank. If he didn't need help, he wouldn't keep her. And if he turned her away, she had no more options. The nearest town was 20 miles behind her. She would not survive another night alone with no shelter. "Please," Jessie said softly. "I have nowhere else to go. I will work harder than any man you could hire. I just need a chance." Something in her voice changed Brody's expression. The fear and exhaustion in her eyes reached him in a way he didn't expect. "It'll be dark soon," he said. "You look like you haven't eaten a proper meal in days." He sighed, as if he already regretted what he was about to offer. "There's a room above the barn. It's small, but clean. You can stay the night and have supper. We'll talk in the morning." Relief washed over Jessie so fast she nearly cried. "Thank you, Mr. Yates. I promise I won't be trouble." "We'll see," Brody said, though his eyes softened. "Come on, you can wash up and eat. Martha, my housekeeper, goes home early. I'll heat some stew." Jessie followed him toward the house, her legs trembling with weakness and relief. For one night she would be safe. Inside, Brody watched her eat 3 bowls of stew. She tried to hide her hunger, but it was clear she had gone too long without food. Even hungry, her manners were gentle, her posture straight. Her hands were soft, not the hands of a girl raised, doing hard labor. "Where did you come from?" he asked. "East," she answered, keeping her eyes on her bowl. "I've been moving west for a while." "Alone?" She nodded. Brody didn't push for more. Everyone out west carried a story they didn't want to share. After showing her the small room above the barn, he lit the lamp and pointed out the water bucket and blankets. Jessie looked at the narrow bed and small stove as if it were a gift fit for a queen. She felt safe for the first time in weeks. "Good night, Miss Keller," he said. "Good night, Brody," she answered, her voice soft with gratitude. As he walked back to the house, Brody told himself he would send her off in the morning with food and a little money. It was the smart thing to do. So why did the thought of letting her go feel wrong? The next morning, Jessie woke to the smell of coffee and the warmth of a real bed. She prayed this kindness would not end today. Jessie climbed down from her small room above the barn, careful with each step. She felt rested for the first time in weeks. When she entered the barn, Brody was already feeding the horses. He looked up as she approached. "Morning," he said. "Sleep well?" "Better than I have in a long time," Jessie replied. "Thank you. There's coffee in the house. Help yourself. I'll be in soon." Quote. In the warm kitchen, Jessie poured coffee and looked around. The place was tidy, but she saw things that needed washing, polishing, and sorting. She wanted to show she was useful. Before long, she was looking through the pantry, checking supplies, and planning breakfast in her mind. When Brody walked in, she already had bacon crackling in the pan, biscuits in the oven, and eggs ready to cook. "You didn't have to do all this," he said, surprised. "I wanted to repay your kindness," Jessie said. "At least, let me make breakfast." Brody sat and watched her move around the kitchen with ease. She cooked like someone trained to do it well, not like a servant girl taught out of duty. When breakfast was served, the smell filled the kitchen, and Brody ate with clear approval. "You know your way around a stove," he said. "My mother made sure I learned," Jessie said, then looked down quickly, as if she had revealed something she didn't want to. After breakfast, he poured more coffee and sat across from her. "Now that you've had a night to rest," he said, "I want the truth. Why are you out here? And please don't say you were just passing through. No one passes through this part of Wyoming by accident." Jessie stared at her cup for a long moment. Running had taught her to trust no one, but something about Brody's steady voice made her want to tell the truth. "I'm running from someone," she said quietly. "My stepfather. After my mother died, he tried to force me to marry a man 3 times my age, a cruel man. I had no choice but to leave." Brody listened with a serious expression. "You came all the way from St. Louis alone?" Her head snapped up. "How did you know?" "Your accent. And you still have a newspaper clipping in your shawl pocket. I saw it yesterday." Jessie's hand went to her pocket with surprise. "You're very observant." "You have to be to run a ranch," he said. She explained how her stepfather cared only about business and reputation, how he wanted to marry her off to a wealthy man named Mr. Hargrove, who controlled everyone in his life, including his wives. She shuddered, remembering his cold smile. "If they find me, they'll drag me back," she whispered. Brody stood and walked to the window, thinking. He looked torn between caution and something deeper. At last he said, "I'll give you 2 weeks of work. After that, we'll decide what's next." Relief swept over her face. "Thank you, Brody. I won't let you down." He nodded. "You'll cook and help keep the house." "Martha comes 3 days a week. You'll take the other days. Your room is yours for as long as you work here. And Jessie." She waited. "While you're here, you're under my protection. No one will force you to leave or marry anyone. You have my word." Jessie's eyes filled with tears she tried to control. "Thank you." That first week, Jessie worked hard. She woke before dawn to make breakfast for Brody and the ranch hands, who ate at the long kitchen table before heading out for the day. At first, the men watched her with curiosity, but her cooking won them over quickly. "Miss Jessie," said Tom, the oldest hand one morning, licking his plate clean. "If the boss ever fires you, come to the bunkhouse. We'll hide you in the loft just to keep eating like this." Quote. Laughter filled the table, and even Brody smiled. After breakfast, Jessie cleaned the house from top to bottom. By the week's end, the floors shined, the windows were clear, and the room smelled like fresh lemon and bread. On Friday, Martha arrived. She was a strong woman with sharp eyes who had worked for the Yates family for years. At first, she eyed Jessie with suspicion. But as the day passed and they baked together, Martha softened. "You work hard," she said. "Not many with a past like yours would roll up their sleeves." "I'm grateful for the chance," Jessie replied. That evening, Brody returned from checking the pastures. The house smelled of stew and fresh bread. He paused in the doorway, taking it in. "It hasn't felt like this since my mother was alive," he said quietly. Jessie looked up, surprised by the softness in his voice. "I'm glad it brings comfort." Their eyes met for a moment longer than expected. It made Jessie's pulse quicken before she looked away. As days passed, Jessie began to feel something she hadn't felt since her father died. Safety. She found herself smiling more, humming while she worked, and looking forward to Brody coming home at sunset. One evening, while she stitched a torn shirt, Brody watched her from the doorway. He didn't speak. He just watched with a strange look in his eyes, as if trying to understand something he wasn't ready to speak out loud. Something was growing between them. Both could feel it, but neither dared name it. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. The second week brought a sharp change in weather. One morning, Jessie woke to frost covering her window. She hurried to start breakfast, only to find Brody already in the kitchen lighting the stove. "Thought I'd warm the place up for you," he said. "Cold came early this year." Jessie smiled, touched by the simple gesture. Brody left soon after breakfast to handle ranch work, while she cleaned and prepared stew for supper. But by midday, dark clouds gathered, and wind pushed hard across the land. Tom rushed into the kitchen, out of breath. "Miss Jessie, is the boss here?" "No, he rode into town for supplies." "Why? What's wrong?" "A storm's coming fast. Fence broke in the east pasture. Some cattle wandered toward Sullivan's Gulch. We're short-handed. If we don't move them now, we'll lose them." Jessie didn't hesitate. "I can ride." "Let me help." Tom stared at her. "This ain't safe for a lady." "I'm not a lady today. I'm a rider with 2 working hands," she said firmly. "Show me which horse to take." Minutes later, bundled in a coat and gloves, Jessie rode out with the men. Snow fell fast, stinging their faces as they reached the gulch. The ground was slippery, and frightened cattle moved dangerously close to the edge. Jessie guided her horse with calm control, helping Zeke push the herd back to safety. Just as they neared the fence line, a sudden blast of wind blinded them with snow. A cow bolted toward the edge, 2 more following. Without thinking, Jessie spurred her horse forward, cutting across their path. It worked. The cattle turned, but the ground beneath her horse gave way. The mare slipped, and Jessie was thrown hard to the frozen ground. Pain shot through her ankle. She lay gasping for breath as snowflakes landed on her face. Zeke rushed over, helping her sit up. "You saved them," he said, "but your ankle, can you stand?" With his help, she got back on her horse. By the time they reached the ranch, the blizzard was raging. Tom helped her inside. "It was my choice," she told him through the pain. "I'd do it again." Hours passed. Snow piled high against the house. Jessie kept lamps lit in the windows and supper warm on the stove. Worry gnawed at her. Brody was still out there. At last, the door blew open. Brody stepped in, covered in snow and shivering. "Jessie," he breathed with relief. "Thank God you're safe." Tom told me what happened. "You were out in that storm," she said, her worry turning to anger. "I thought." Brody moved toward her. His eyes dropped to her ankle, now wrapped with cloths. "You're hurt." "It's just a sprain," she whispered. Brody knelt, unwrapped the bandage, and examined her injury with gentle hands. "You won't walk on this for days, you hear me? I can't sit helpless. There's work." "Jessie," he said softly, looking into her eyes, "the ranch can wait. You matter more." The room grew quiet. Something passed between them, warm and deep, like a truth finally spoken without words. The storm kept them snowed in for 3 days. Brody insisted Jessie stay in a downstairs bedroom so she wouldn't have to climb the barn ladder. He kept the fire warm, brought her books, and even tried to cook, though he burned half the potatoes. One evening, they cooked together. Jessie sat at the table mixing dough while Brody cut vegetables beside her. "You know," she teased, "you peel potatoes like you're afraid of them." Brody laughed, shaking his head. I'm better with horses than vegetables. Working side by side felt natural, as if they had done it for years, not days. Brody paused, watching her with a soft look. You've changed this house, he said quietly. Feels like home again. Jesse's heart fluttered at the warmth in his tone. When the storm ended, life slowly returned to normal. Weeks passed. Jessie healed and continued her work, and every day something unspoken grew stronger between them. One night, after supper, she and Brody sat near the fire. Their hands brushed on the armrest. Neither pulled away. Jessie, he said softly, I need to ask you something. Her heart beat faster. I told you once that I didn't need a servant. I needed a partner, someone to build a life with. These months, you've become that to me. Jessie looked up, breath trembling. Brody reached for her hand. I care for you, more than I ever planned to, and I think you feel it too. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear but overwhelming joy. Yes, she said, I do. Brody's voice dropped to a whisper. Then, Jessie Keller, will you stay, not as my employee, not for shelter, but as the woman I want by my side? Will you be mine? Jessie placed her hand over his. There is nothing I want more, she said. Brody lifted her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. The girl who arrived hungry, shaking, and alone had found a home, a future, and a man who saw her worth, not as a servant, but as a wife. Their story had only begun.